quite a bit, but I want to yap about this because they're not entirely wrong. Steam is like a diet monopoly when it comes to PC games, but not because they use like monopolistic tactics or anything. They literally just offer a better service than anything else that seems to come up and literally do nothing and win just by being better than all of the competitors that try and enter the market. Developers and players just naturally gravitate towards Steam, and thus they do kind of have like a stranglehold, like nipple clamps on PC games market. So like they do have oomph, and you can make an argument that they're like a soft monopoly, but I think it tells a very interesting story because there are alternatives, there are competitors, they just don't necessarily thrive. So anytime that a new games platform tries to enter the market to compete with Steam, they do their own version, with blackjack and hookers and whatever, and it usually flounders. Like it usually flatlines pretty quickly because it's just inferior to Steam. Even though Steam has remained largely unchanged for the longest time, it has cemented itself as just a really easy to use platform that's just extremely convenient for developers and players. So a new platform springing up, it's got its work cut out for it. But that's not to say they don't exist, because there are a lot of alternatives. Well, maybe a lot's being a little charitable. There are some alternatives. Some of them are even decent, like GOG. Even though in recent times I've had extraordinarily horrible luck with GOG and getting games to actually fucking work through there, it is a service that is good, but it's not really comparable to Steam or anything. And then there's things like the Epic Game Store, which I think did try and employ monopolistic tactics to compete with Steam. Epic Game Store, I don't know how many of you remember, was trying to like incentivize developers to marry themselves to their platform exclusively. Basically trying to have like their own console wars between these platforms of Steam versus Epic Game Store. So they would like steal away developer titles to go to the Epic Game Store through incentives. And it didn't work because Epic Game Store itself is just not a great platform. So people don't like to use it willingly. Very few people choose Epic Game Store over Steam. So it hasn't beaten Steam, and it's kind of a joke that's gotten a lot of resentment because of some of their tactics they've used to try and compete. Whereas Steam doesn't really do any of that. It just kind of sits there fucking lollipop in hand and does nothing and is winning. All these other platforms spring up and usually just run themselves straight into the shitter. So Steam just always prevails in the end. And that does put it in a position where it is like a soft monopoly. Worth mentioning about this study in particular, 75% of respondents were senior managers of C-suite level, with 77% from studios with more than 50 employees. And the study found that for a majority of the studios, Steam accounts for over 75% of revenue. And then they do briefly mention that developers started utilizing Epic Game Store and the Xbox PC Game Store. But again, it's clear Steam is the bulk of the balloons here. It is fascinating because, as I briefly mentioned, Steam doesn't do anything to try and solidify this pseudo-monopoly. Like, they don't have parameters in place to try and force people to use Steam and drive out competition or anything like that. They literally just plant their feet and lat spread and just sit there menacingly, to the point where if you're a developer releasing on PC and you choose not to release on Steam, you are cutting your own nuts off. You are doing yourself a huge disservice in not having your game in front of all of those Steam users. And again, it's not Steam that's doing that and putting that fear of God in you. It's just gamers choose Steam, so if your game's not on Steam, they might not be buying it at all in general. They might not even give it the time of day. So like, it's very interesting, because again, Steam, at least not to anything I've ever seen, has never really tried to do anything to be a monopoly in the PC gaming space. They've just always been really convenient, like user-focused, and like, first and foremost, just accessible to developers and users, that they are just the best service. Now, of course, it's not perfect. Nothing ever will be. Like, I fucking hate the Steam friend UI and all that. I bitch and moan about that endlessly on stream whenever I'm trying to, like, co-op with friends on different games. But, like, overall, the Steam platform is better than any other games platform that has come out, generally speaking. So, it's hard to compete with that. So even though Steam's doing nothing, like they don't need to like innovate or change things, they just have to not wipe their whole ass with everything they've built over the last couple of decades. And so far they've been doing a great job of not just fucking it all up. And that seems to be like all they do. They are doing nothing to limit competition or anything. I have to imagine at the Steam HQ, they don't even know that they're ever in a competition with other game platforms. They probably have no fucking idea about like what Epic Game Store does with trying to get like exclusives and shit in the past. Like, I doubt they even have it as a blip on their radar. Now, normally, monopolies are a really bad thing for consumers. That's typically bad news. You do not want monopolies because there's no incentive to be the best service. There's no incentive to change or improve or get better for consumers because what's the point? There's no alternatives. And like I said, Steam is not a monopoly. But it kind of is like a de facto monopoly in the sense that pretty much everyone is choosing Steam, developer and players alike. So all the other alternative platforms, they're not exactly, you know, popping off or anything like that. They're not out there wiggling their finger in celebration